Okay, we are now live. We will be getting started here in about 3 minutes. Today's topic, clearly, it is the constitutionality of some of these decisions, protecting your constitutional rights during the current healthcare crisis that we are experiencing. And obviously, healthcare crisis is a euphemism for that which shall not be mentioned via YouTube's requirements. So starting off, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of controversy about whether or not the governments, federal, state, local, have the right and authority to tell you you have to stay home when you haven't been quarantined. How you doing, Dale? Thanks for joining us. So whether or not you have been quarantined or told by a doctor to isolate, we are a nation of laws, yes. However, not every law that is passed is constitutional or constitutionally motivated. And it doesn't mean that every law that infringes upon what people believe is a right is an unconstitutional law. Sadly, it isn't a very easy or a quick process of discerning that. You have to go through it to understand what your requirements as a citizen or a non-citizen residing in the country are. And I'm going to take an example from my town. The city of Kirksville went beyond a stay-at-home order and issued a shelter-in-place order. And this was discussed. The city posted a copy of the draft stay-at-home order that they were discussing. And then when they voted yesterday, they voted in a shelter-in-place. Now, they listened to some of the feedback from citizens, and I provide a little bit directly to the mayor myself. Way over the top. There's definitely an argument for that. We'll address that in a moment as well. And for those of you that aren't seeing the comments, I was just responding to a comment by I can't really pronounce that. MRZ Red Badger, that the shelter in place is way over the top. And yeah, it clearly can be. But what they issued as a shelter in place order, when you actually read the order, it's more of a stay at home order or a, please try and restrict your travel and being out and about order, which would be an awkward thing for them to phrase. So the city council does order and declare that all individuals currently living within the city of Kirksville are ordered to shelter in place at their place of residence, except as allowed in this ordinance. Now, this is a long ordinance, and it is full of exceptions. All persons may leave their homes or place of residence or visiting the city as a non-resident only for essential activities, essential government functions, or to operate essential businesses and operations, all as defined in this ordinance. Okay, to the extent that individuals are using shared or outdoor space when outside their residence, they must at all times and as much as reasonably possible adhere to social distancing requirements. Individuals experiencing homelessness are exempt from this order, but are strongly urged to obtain shelter. Now, I'm very, very active in supporting of nonprofits that try and help with homelessness. I volunteer and I provide legal services to a local nonprofit that is attempting to establish a homeless shelter in Kirksville. And it's something that has been very, very dear to me for a number of years. So when we say that homeless people are exempt from this. One of the issues that I have, first, most of them aren't going to know about the order in the first place. This was put out online. It was put out during a video that was posted. The odds of the information about the order getting to the homeless community in Kirksville, it's a very low chance that they're even going to know about it to follow it. Then exempting them from the order. This is also a socioeconomic category of people that are at higher risk for almost every illness, which presents a number of issues in and of itself. Just that fact alone is concerning, because there are people that will tend to live closer together, especially when you get like throwbacks. Today, we've had this temperature inversion, throwing it back to cold weather, man. It's really weird. So they will live closer together, and the hygiene isn't going to be at, the level that some other people may expect. That's because they don't have access to those facilities. Even our local YMCA right now is closed. So a facility where somebody may have been able to go and shower and clean up isn't there. So individuals whose resident is unsafe or becomes unsafe, such as victims of domestic violence, are permitted and urged to leave their home and stay at safe alternative location. But Dale Hess, yet movie stars and basketball players get and homeless don't. Not really sure where you're going there, Dale, but yeah, people that have greater exposure and have had greater exposure. Okay. People that have had greater exposure to international travel have had a higher risk early on. Now, we don't know if the homeless are sick. That's because we haven't tested them. We're getting tests out, and early tests went out to the wealthy and powerful. The tests aren't available and haven't been available for the lower income. The only people that are getting tested are the people that are hospital level cases. And that rules out the general public. We just don't know. There's probably a greater number of people that have been sick or are getting sick. Morning, Danny. And that's one of the problems, is we haven't had good testing. So we can't say for a fact that we only have X number of cases. We've only tested and confirmed X number of cases. There may well have been more. And we can't test for whether or not this illness has already made a pass through Missouri. And it could very well have done a quick pass. We just don't know. There is antibody testing that the powers that be are working on, and it is hopeful that they'll have that. So they'll be able to test and see if people have the antibodies and then clear them. And if we can start getting elements of our society back to work and back to functioning, that would be very good, because the shutdowns are going to be as bad or worse than the illness. As much as I hate to say that. So yeah, movie stars, basketball players have gotten the illness, but they've had a greater exposure to people who have traveled and have had that connection. So that actually kind of makes sense. However, we're going to have a hard time shutting this down in the lower income community, especially amongst the homeless. One, they don't really go out and talk to law enforcement or go to see people and seek help like that very often. And now that we've shut everything down, it's even harder. All businesses and operations within the city, except essential businesses, well, I can speak, and operations, are required to cease all activities except minimum basic operations as defined in this ordinance. So you can maintain the value of your inventory. If you are a garden center, you can keep sending somebody in to water the plants, take care of them, provide security, process payroll, employee benefits, or facilitate employees working remotely. Businesses can also continue operations consisting exclusively of employees or contractors performing activities at their own residence, working from home. Now, we have so many exceptions to this that the rule almost becomes meaningless. Restaurants and retail establishments that normally prepare food for on-site consumption, are prohibited from conducting any dine-in food service, but they can provide pickup, drive-through, or delivery services as long as such business otherwise complies with the ordinance. All essential businesses and operations are encouraged to remain open. Now, essential businesses and operations are still required to comply with the social distancing requirement. And let me take a brief aside for 1 second. My background is media. Okay, I have a bachelor's degree in journalism, a master's in mass communication. I spent 12 to 15 years, if you include the part-time freelance work I was doing, in media, as a reporter, photographer, editor for weekly and daily newspapers, and publisher and owner of paper. Does lockdown apply to plumbers? You know what? Actually, they're one of the exceptions, and we'll get to that in a moment. One of the problems they have with how they sold this is by using the phrase social, when they called it social distancing. Social distancing is too related to social justice. It's too related to the liberal concept. And I don't really want to get into politics. I'm only talking about the communication value of the words that are chosen. Okay. Social distancing has largely got discounted as an important thing by a great number of conservative people because of the use of the word social. They should have simply referred to that as physical distancing, because that's what it is, a physical barrier between people. And that is that's a communications flaw that was made in this entire process. Possibly because the people that coined the phrase and made it the phrase that it is, were of a social justice mindset. So the social distancing that is required in here is the same thing. Stay 6 feet away, use mask, try not to touch your face, cough correctly. Now, beginning immediately, no social gatherings, public or private, all of them are restricted to no more than 10 people. Okay, question from Dale. I still don't understand. Aren't we a nation of laws, rules, and orders? Aren't we a nation of laws? Rules and orders are for kings. If I get a fine for not following orders, isn't that a violation of my rights? Well, the question is well taken. There is, however, we do have laws for the purpose of these orders that are out there. In Missouri, RISMO 192.320, 192.020, and there's a selection of laws there that allow and require the director of the Department of Health and Senior Services to issue orders regarding to public health. So in a state of emergency, the director is not only allowed to, but required to issue necessary orders. That also flows down through the other political subdivisions within the state, the counties, county health departments, county commissions, municipalities. When there's a municipal health director, they can all add and issue their own orders that comply with the state orders as well. These orders are certainly an imposition upon the rights that we enjoy. However, and we're going to get into the legalities of that in just a moment, the question is it an impermissible imposition on those rights? And by and large, the answer is no. It will be found as a permissible imposition upon your rights. So, yes, the answer to your question is yes, that is a violation, but is it a permissible or an impermissible violation? And for the most part, it will be a permissible violation. Now, remember, we're talking about what the law is, not what I may wish that it were. So I'm going to skip ahead for a moment on the Kirksville order to what is categorized as essential activities. Okay. Essential activities, as I skip ahead to it and try and find it again. Wow. Essential activities is, essential travel, going to the doctor, going to the grocery store. Hey, not a problem. Going to the doctor, going to the grocery store, going to, take care of the things you have to do. I've got a dentist appointment next week. I'm hoping he's not going to cancel it because it's taken freaking 3 months to get the appointment. So that's hoping that those things are that my appointment's going to go on anyway. A little bit of self-interest there. But those essential activities you're going to be allowed to keep doing. If you have to transfer custody of a minor dependent, your child, okay, here's a tip. If you have joint custody with your ex, do not use this crisis or these orders to deny the other party their custody rights. If you do, you are going to regret that in court. Now, if your other party says, hey, by the way, I tested positive, but I'd still like to have my visitation on Friday, that's a different story. Or if they say that they have the concern points, they traveled overseas, they've been to a hot spot, they're running a fever, they have a weird cough. And let's face it, it's spring in Missouri, man. Everybody is coughing. But don't just violate your custody agreement because that will bite you in the butt in court. Now, essential activities is an act to perform tasks essential to any person's health or safety, or the health and safety of family, household members, or pets, including not limited to obtaining medical supplies, medication, visiting a healthcare professional. I assume a vet would be there too. Obtaining supplies needed to work from home or laundering clothing. Obtain necessary service supplies for themselves, their family, household members, pets, or deliver necessary services or supplies to others. Engage in essential travel. Now, essential travel is also defined, and I'm not going to jump ahead to that, but understand that, taking a day to go visit Aunt Sally is not going to be essential travel. Shop for grocery store products, food, beverages, household consumer products, cleaning, personal care products. And let's face it, our retailers are going off the deep end too. We can talk about Walmart later, but it sure makes you wish we hadn't all shopped at Walmart and shut the local stores down. Engage in services, perform work necessary to operate or maintain essential critical infrastructure. Engage in outdoor activity, walking, hiking, running, or biking to the extent reasonably consistent with social distancing requirements. Look, we're all going to come out of this with the COVID-19 45, like the freshman 15 when you were in college. Yeah. Hell, I've already gained 15 pounds. This is ridiculous because we're not doing anything. Participate in religious services or other spiritual practices, but only to the extent consistent with reasonable compliance with social distancing requirements and gathering size limitations. I will tell you that that right there is a part that Kirksville changed. It was a much more restrictive statement in the prior iterations. I know I had commented to the mayor that I thought that was too far. You can't ban religious services. Constitutionally, it doesn't work, especially when you have these lists of exclusions and exceptions. So I think that the city of Kirksville threaded the needle here about as perfectly as they can. Religious services and practices are certainly an essential activity for the people that have the various beliefs. Acts consisting of providing essential products and services to a resident, essential business, or to a business in order that business maintains minimum basic operations. The activities of open construction sites, irrespective of the type of structure, subject to OSHA and safety guidelines. Okay, necessary care for a dependent in person's legal custody, including transfer of physical custody, care for a family member in another household, essential government functions, engage in healthcare operations, engage in essential businesses, exercise constitutional rights to the extent that by so acting, a person is not in danger of public health, safety, or the health safety of any person. So again, City of Kirksville is threading the needle here pretty well. You can exercise your constitutional rights, but please remember that your rights end where the other person's rights begin, and your rights begin where the other person's end. It's a fluid line, and City of Kirksville in this is recognizing that that line is fluid. And I'm actually fairly proud of the way our city put this together. It is, I wish, and I believe, not necessary, but they did as good of a job as could be expected given the circumstances. So what are essential businesses? And yeah, Danny Tollison, plumbers. Plumbers are most definitely an essential service. And anybody whose toilet is backed up while they're locked at home is going to agree with that. Healthcare operations are essential. Critical infrastructure is essential. Essential government functions are classed as essential businesses. Grocery stores, farmers markets, farm stand, produce stand, supermarket, food banks, food pantries, convenience stores, or other establishments engaged in retail sale of or providing canned food, dry goods, fruits, vegetables, pet supply, meats, fish, poultry, or any household consumer products. Example given: cleaning or personal care products, including but not limited to stores that sell groceries and also sell other non-grocery products and products necessary to maintaining the safety, sanitation, and essential operation of residences. However, no dine-in service is permitted. Businesses that engage in food cultivation, including farming, livestock, and fishing. Another question from Steve Tunis. Isn't martial law the only thing that can suspend constitutional rights? I mean, people should follow social distancing, but it isn't required right now. Actually, Steve, I'm going to repeat kind of what I said to Dale. The social distancing actually is required right now. That is the order that has come down from the state and the local authorities in my community. But yes, the state of Missouri, certainly. Martial law isn't the only thing that can suspend constitutional rights, but we're not talking about, and let me make sure I'm clear on this. The orders are not suspending constitutional rights. They are, however, they're infringements upon it. They are inconveniences, but they're not impermissible infringements because of our laws. And we may agree or disagree with whether or not they should be able to do that. The fact is that under the laws that we have now, they are. So businesses that engage in food, lumber production, manufacturing, processing, packaging, wholesaling, storage, warehousing, or distribution. Businesses that provide shelter, food, social services, other necessities of life for economically disadvantaged or people otherwise in need of social services. including but not limited to individuals with physical, intellectual, or developmental disabilities, newspapers, television stations, radio stations, other media, whether public or private, gas stations, auto supply. And let me go back to that. Newspapers, television stations, radio stations, or other media services, whether public or private. Right now, this broadcast on YouTube would be classified as an essential business under that definition. So while we have these restraints on our liberties that have been imposed, the exceptions here are overwhelming the document. I mean, basically, almost any business is going to be freaking accepted here because, what I just mentioned, media, all media, this would be gas stations, auto supply, auto repair, related facilities, banks, financial institutions, getting things for your child to do, such as bike and puzzle. Yeah. And sure, that's part of some of the essential activities that were handled, Tina. You can go outside, you can participate, engage in outdoor activity, walking, hiking, running, biking, to the extent reasonably consistent with social distancing requirements. And I'm reading this from the Kirksville Declaration. Now, I haven't addressed the state one yet. So if you're outside of the city of Kirksville, this won't necessarily apply to you. Another one will. Whichever one that applies to you. And we'll go over the governor's order in just a moment. I just happen to really like what Kirksville did. They passed the order, but they also put in so many exceptions to it that the exceptions eat the order. Inns, hotels, hardware stores, trash collection, banks, financial institutions. Essentially, when you read through this list, almost every business in Kirksville is considered essential. You'll have to look at your own individual business, but for Danny Tollerson Plumbers, that's definition N. Definition N, plumbers, electricians, exterminators, and other service providers who provide services that are necessary to maintaining the safety, sanitation, communication, and essential operations of residences, healthcare operations, essential critical infrastructure, essential government services, essential activities, or other essential businesses. So I think that pretty much covers just about everything a plumber does. Except I don't think that there would be justification for you to be installing a new water fountain at the public park. Look, Stephen, bars asking for the ability to jail anyone without seeing a judge is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm positive that the defense bar nationally would be fighting that. It is, I don't see where that would be acceptable under any conditions. Even our orders closing the courts in Missouri allow for in-person hearings when it's a constitutional rights issue. So our orders allow for certain in-person hearings. And I think that request by bar, with what I know of it, I haven't read the full request, but it would be going too far. So these essential businesses that we have it's really, really broad. And essential government functions, any services needed to ensure continuing operation of federal, state, local governments, offices, agencies, officials, political subdivisions, entities created by intergovernmental agreement, essential court functions determined by presiding judge or presiding judge's designee, any other government functions necessary to provide for health, safety, and welfare of the public. So with Kirksville, essentially, things to remember is social distancing, stay 6 feet away, wash your hands with soap and water, use hand sanitizer with more than 60% alcohol. Cover your cough sneezes with something other than your hands. So when I coughed just a moment ago using my hand, that would have been inappropriate. But I promise you, I will sanitize my desk so I don't make myself sick. Regularly cleaning, high-touch services, not shaking hands. Enforcement. Now, this is where enforcement is interesting. Violating the state order and some orders, the entities are going to enforce that under 192.320. And it is punishable by up to 1 year in a county jail and up to a $2,000 fine. It's a Class A misdemeanor. In this case, City of Kirksville, failure to comply with this ordinance is an ordinance violation, and the person upon conviction shall be fined not less than $50, not more than $500 for each violation, or confined for a period of not more than 90 days, or punished by both such fine and imprisonment. Any business found to be in violation shall be subject to prosecution for each day as a separate offense, and the business shall additionally be subject to a revocation of its business license and disconnection of utility service. So they're putting some teeth, but with all of the open essential businesses, most businesses in town are going to be covered as essential. Storage, funeral homes, laundromats, businesses providing mailing and shipping services, educational institutions, construction. We've got such a wide avenue of things that are acceptable that the exceptions in this case eat the rule. Now, talking about the governor and the state of Missouri. Okay, Randall Williams, Director of Health Senior Services, we have here the Director of Department of Health Senior Services, finding it necessary to protect the public health and prevent further spread of the illness. I'm sorry, I got a weird pop-up on my screen. There we go. Has issued the following order. Individuals currently residing within the state of Missouri shall avoid leaving their homes or places of residence. Shall avoid. Doesn't mean that you cannot leave, but you should stay home whenever possible. When individuals need to leave their homes or places of residence to work, access food, prescriptions, healthcare, or other necessities, or to engage in outdoor activity, they should at all times practice social distancing. Individuals may also go to and from individuals' place of worship, provided the limitations on social gatherings and social distancing are properly adhered to. Any entity that does not employ individuals to perform essential work or functions as set forth in the guidance by DHS outlined, and we won't get into that, shall adhere to limitations on social gathering and social distancing. Entities that do not employ individuals to perform essential work or functions may request a waiver from the limitation on social gatherings. So if your business is an essential business, according to DHSS and the state, you can't exceed the 10 people limit. If you're not an essential business and you need the people to stay working, you can request a waiver and exceed the 10-person limit. So again, they're leaving enough openings here to be able to keep functioning to some extent. Any entity that employs individuals to perform essential worker functions set forth in Section 2 of this order, which was detailed out, and that is engaged in retail sales to the public shall limit the number of individuals in any particular retail location as follows. 25% or less of the entity's authorized fire or building code occupancy as set by local authorities. For a retail location with a square footage of less than 10,000 feet. 10% or less of the entity's authorized fire or building code occupancy as set by local authorities for retail locations with square footage of less than 10,000 square feet. So, what the hell does that mean? And that's a great question, because you have two conflicting clauses, no real explanation as to why. And this is the problem with these orders. They're not written with a criminal law mindset. Red Badger, I think it is written by people that need to feel relevant and CYA. Well, there's a lot of CYA. And I know that our political folks here in Kirksville have caught a lot of flack from people for not issuing an order. And I'm not sure that the order does a whole lot. But it is what it is. And yeah, CYA is always important. Look at our national, I guess I have to say our national leaders. If you look at our national leaders, now they're pumping up how serious they think it's going to be. And the reason for that, when you get right down and distill through the politics, is because then they come back and they can say, yeah, we shut down the country for 6 months. Yeah, we bankrupted, 50% of all the small businesses. And yeah, 30,000 people still died. But think of how much worse it would have been if we hadn't done anything. And they can always claim a victory. And I think there's some of that going on, so that they can claim victory whether there is an issue or not. And it's the CYA factor. So in accordance with the guidelines, and we're talking about the state order now, the Missouri state order, all individuals shall avoid social gatherings of more than 10 people. Social gatherings shall mean any planned or spontaneous event or convening that would bring together more than 10 people in a single space at a single time. Now, my background is criminal defense. Okay. When you're breaking down something for criminal defense, you look at what the actual regulations mean and what the definitions are. A single space at a single time. Okay, what is a single space? So I'm looking in here. The order doesn't define a single space. So 10 people or more in a single space. Would a single space be my office? This room right here. If there are 10 people in my office, that's too damn many. I don't want that many people in my office. Would it be the broader office for the firm, the firm's location? Well, 10 people is not close in the firm's location. We've got 4 reasonably sized individual offices, the break area, we've got the bullpen, the open conference room, the private conference room. So, 10 people, we could have 100 people in this office. And while it would obviously be full, it wouldn't be confining full. So 10 people in a single space at a single time, without a single space being defined in some quantifiable means, it becomes a next to meaningless phrase, because that'll get litigated if it gets charged. Question, Spin Up. Am I breaking the law if I'm driving in my pickup by myself because I'm bored and with no possibility to give or get the virus since I'm not getting around anybody? That's a great question. And as we're looking at the state order now, the state order says that you should avoid leaving the home unless you need to access food, prescription, healthcare, or other necessities, or to engage in outdoor activity. Well, I imagine going for a drive could be considered an outdoor activity. For somebody that grew up in the 70s and 80s, this crisis has essentially brought back cruising. We're back to cruising around. And I guess that's kind of cool. I wish I could say a solid yes or no to your question. The answer truly is probably not, but would somebody, yeah. Well, and I said should, Red Badger, and that's something the text of the order is shall avoid. The problem is avoid does not mean, it's not a bar. It's shall avoid. Well, I mean, hell, let's just go to the dictionary. Let me click on this 1 second. Avoid, keep away, or stop oneself from doing something. I don't see avoid as being a bar. Okay. Avoid doesn't say you avoid a car accident, but you still might get in one. Prevent from happening, make necessary adjustments to avoid an accident. So, when we go to the text of the governor's order, okay, shall avoid leaving their homes or places of residence, and then they list off what you can leave your residence for. Dale, I can't disagree with you. I think that we have gone over the top with our response to this. So, is it going to go to court? Yeah, a lot of these things are going to go to court. Matter of fact, in Pennsylvania, the governor of Pennsylvania issued a more restrictive answer. Yeah, good plan. That's kind of like a buddy of mine who's a lawyer in Florida was representing somebody, and the guy was charged with possession of drugs. The police officer searched the car, found a jacket. It was a female's denim jacket. How you doing, Revolution? And inside that female's denim jacket was a bag of weed. So the officer charged him with possession of marijuana. Well, we went to court and he argued that it's a female's jacket. I didn't know what was in it. I didn't search it. I was with a girl, and apparently this guy kept a female's jacket with weed in it in the backseat of the car, and that was how he stored his weed. And he was able to argue that he had no knowledge of that. He didn't know what was in pockets of her jacket. He didn't feel comfortable going through it. Now, the story was related to by an attorney in Florida, and it seemed to work. As for Dollar General bag, I make sure they're still open, or they're open during those hours. Look, going to the store, yes, going to the store is something that's allowed under the state rules, is allowed under the city of Kirksville order as well. Food, prescriptions, healthcare, other necessities. Other necessities, as we go through this order, we'll see if that is properly defined anywhere. But other necessities is a wide gaping hole for a defense attorney to drive through. And then to engage in outdoor activity. Well, you got to get to and from your outdoor activity. So if you're going for a drive in the country, that's going for a drive in the country. You're going to your outdoor activity. Avoid the police like the plague. Well, you avoid everybody like the plague right now, I guess. That's we were told to by the governor. Dale, don't we have the right to remain silent? You always have the right to remain silent. Absolutely. Except in certain circumstances, because our Supreme Court made a very, very bad decision. If police officers asking you a question, you always have the right to invoke your right to remain silent. Okay? I don't answer questions, not my attorney present. Am I free to go? Are you detaining me, or am I free to go? Yes, and I tell people not to answer questions. For the love of God, please don't. If the police officers are asking you questions, generally it's not for your benefit. Don't answer them. Rod and reel? Yeah. I think they've also suspended the necessity for a fishing license, but I don't know that for a fact. You should look that up for yourself. So yes, you can go out, you can go for your ride in the country. I would say there's enough of things here that there's enough gaps in the governor's order that I think you'll be able to cover that. Now, in the city of Kirksville, per our order, they want us to give essential employees a letter on letterhead detailing where they're working, as if the police are going to be checking papers of people who are out and about. I think that that's probably not going to actually happen. But if it does, we'll be addressing that. I'm hoping that they won't go that far. Stopping people to check their papers. Oh my God. The news headlines, if they did that, would be ridiculous. So in Missouri, in accordance with guidelines, every person in business shall abide by social distancing requirements, maintaining 6 feet of space between individuals. Provisions shall not apply to family members or individuals performing essential worker functions. Now, shall not apply to family members is interesting because some of you may be aware that Menards posted a sign, and some of the others, that they don't have, that they're not allowing kids under 16 to come into the store. Walmart has posted something like that too. This is a problem for single parents. Who is going to watch their minor children while they go to the store? They can't leave them alone, can't leave them in the car. Either one of those would be inappropriate. And we won't leave the dog in the car, or we're not going to expect them to leave a 4-year-old. And if they're at all like my kids, the kids will be off joyriding the damn thing. So some of these rules that business are in placing make no sense. But a business can in place any rules they want at their business. They have that right. Dale, don't we have a right to be secure in our papers? Yes, but that is a different issue. You're talking about search and seizure rules and papers and effects. If they're asking you for proof that you are meeting one of the exceptions, that's a different question. And I really don't think police are going to be doing that, even though it's authorized in Kirksville. I really don't think they're going to. I sure hope not. Pro Se, thank you. Yes, the waiver of the permit through April 15th. Awesome. Go get some trout, guys. I mean, have a cookout. Fire up the grills. Want to release prisoners from the slammer so they don't catch the virus and threaten to give stay-at-home violators 180 days. Doesn't make sense. Well, yeah. Violating a state order could subject you to a Class A misdemeanor, punishment up to 1 year in the county jail, and up to a $2,000 fine. And the state order you can look at, but it has a lot of the same gaps that we had been talking about before. Essential activities. Leave your home or place of residence, work, access food, prescription, healthcare, other necessities, or to engage in outdoor activity. That's a pretty broad encompassing of activities. So, yeah, it's a pretty broad statement. What if a doctor deems you're unable to make medical decisions for yourself for questionable reasons that can't be adjudicated yet, and they try to force tests, treatments, shots, etc.? You're not going to like this answer. But if you have been adjudicated incompetent, if a doctor deems you're unable to make medical decisions for yourself, they still have to go to the court to have a person appointed to make those medical decisions for you. Okay. And in that case, that can happen. You'll have a guardian who will make those decisions. Getting into the court, that is one of the exceptions that our courts are open for and for hearings. That's something, an emergency hearing like that, we would be able to get into court and have a hearing. Questionable reasons that can't be adjudicated, no, those would be adjudicated. There would be a hearing. After that, can they force you to take tests, treatments, shots? Yes. Once the guardian says, yes, you can have those, or you should have those, you will have those. But that's not an unusual process, and we have that process on a regular basis. It's not an emergency-based process. And if somebody is acting in a bad way, they could be 96ed and sent down for, if they're acting mentally unstable, they could be 96 and sent down for a mental health evaluation. Again, that's a common thing. It's not only for this emergency. Can I do anything about Verizon and Comcast rating my house with 5G? Get a 5G phone. I got to tell you, I don't think a 5G phone is going to do any good because nobody has 5G. Comcast, Verizon, they're saying they have 5G. They don't. If you look at the actual information they're selling what's branded as 5G. It's not. As for rating the house, gosh, if you can prove that it is unhealthy and dangerous, there is a class action suit that would be insane. But we'd have to be able to prove by preponderance of evidence that those spectrums are hazardous and that you have suffered an injury from it and that they knew it. And I'm certain that you can build reflectors and blocking things into your walls. That's very possible. Faraday cages are not anything overly new. You can just run the wire in the wall and that'll block your signals. Personally, I like having my cell phone work and my Wi-Fi work at home, so I wouldn't do that. But need a Geiger counter. I don't know if a Geiger counter would detect microwave radiation. I don't know. That's outside of my skill set. So, yeah, that's an interesting question, but I don't have the science for that. I can't tell you. State office buildings are closed to the public, but all essential state functions shall continue. Now, it has long been said that no person's life or property is safe while the legislature is in session. A true statement. Right now, with the crisis that's going on, a lot of municipalities, a lot of what should be public meetings are winding up being closed. And that is a huge concern. In your areas, you should pay attention to that. If the public meetings are closed, you can't see what these bodies are doing. And you need to be able to see what they're doing. Kirksville has been posting their meetings online, and that's great. There's a level of transparency there. I mean, they're putting up videos of their meetings, and that's a good thing. What they don't have is the public comment and interactive from the community. The community can't participate in that discussion. So that is one of the drawbacks. I don't have an answer. I don't know that I would be willing to take a case challenging that, because I think they're being as transparent as they can while following their own order. But there's got to be a medium. Yeah, and it is convenient. In the negative, sarcastic way that I think you intended and I agree with. In my community in Kirksville, I think that they're putting it online. Are they violating the Sunshine Law? Well, to some extent, they are. Is it? And this is where we come back to the permissible, impermissible discussion we had earlier. Is it an impermissible violation? I don't think the court's going to rule that that's impermissible. I think the court's going to rule that they are doing everything that they reasonably could do by going live with their meetings, by putting it up on Facebook and in the and on YouTube. I think they're doing everything that they can, and I'm glad they're doing that. The public comment period, if you've ever been to a city council meeting, any city council, public comment period gets a lot of off-the-wall public comments that, quite frankly, most elected officials would rather not have to listen to anyway. But the citizens need to have an opportunity to speak to their elected officials. So I guess there's got to be a way to find out how to have that communication from the people to the elected officials, and maybe it'll be comments on Facebook, the city's Facebook page, or on their YouTube channel. I don't know. I think the court's going to have a hard time holding them to task when they're putting everything video recorded and online, live and recorded copies for people to review later. I would have a hard time taking them to task over that. Now, if they're still having discussions outside of the public viewing of the meeting, that would be a violation of Sunshine Law and be inappropriate. And I'm pretty sure that most municipalities are right now. You get a couple of council members together to discuss what they're going to do. They're probably going to have that discussion. Let's see, there's a couple of comments here. Wouldn't there be a concern for the elderly or disabled to be standing in a long line outside of Walmart, since many towns don't have mom and pop stores now, thanks to Walmart? Yeah, there's a concern there. Definitely. And never mind, just setting aside the illness portion of that, how long are you going to keep your elderly disabled people standing in a line before they're physically unable to do so? That's another issue that has to be looked at. So I don't know what the answer is going to be. Walmart, as a business, certainly has a right to restrict access to its facilities. Walmart has a pickup. You can place order for pickup and go pick it up when it's ready. Locally, our Hy-Vee delivers, our Aldi's delivers, Amazon, of course, delivers. There's not a lot of Walmart that I can't get somewhere else within a reasonable price range, although it is not the local entity. And I like local businesses. I like being able to go down and talk to the person who's done it for 20 years. When you look at, I'm going to pick out a local business right now. Here in Kirksville, we have King's Appliance, downtown Kirksville. King's Appliance is a local business. They sell appliances, furniture. They've been there forever. They repair appliances. They fix them. They'll come out to your house and fix stuff for you if there's a problem. They stand behind their stuff. Completely different. You can get a better price on some things, and you may not get a better price on some things. King's will be better. But if you go to the box stores, you go to your Home Depot, your Menards, your Lowe's, you can get the stuff delivered from them. But if you have a problem, you're on your own. If you have a problem, they tell you to call the manufacturer. So, yeah, you might save $50, $100 on something. But if you have a problem with that, a local business like King is going to take better care of you, because they're your neighbors, they're your friends, they're the people you go to church with, they're the people that you see when you're walking down the street. Same thing. We've got our Ace Hardware. Okay, Ace Hardware here in town. The people working there, if you have a question, can answer it. How exactly do you get that stupid wax ring on the toilet stool to stay in place while you're trying to set and maneuver the damn toilet over those little posts? Well, the guy at Ace Hardware can tell you. The kid working for minimum wage at the box store probably can't. And maybe he can. I don't want to discount the kid because I don't know him. But the odds are much lower that he's going to know the little tricks on how to do it. So, yeah. And yeah, that's my take. I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off on that and use a rubber one works better. Well, there you go. And I think we had a plumber on this thread earlier too. He'll probably make some suggestions, or he'll tell me to hire a damn plumber like I should have in the first place. Ultimately, what I wound up doing because we had other issues. But, and we're getting a little off. But I want to talk to you just briefly about how the courts evaluate the rights. What goes into that? When the state violates your constitutional rights, and I say when because the state violates your constitutional rights all the time. And by state, I'm referring to government, be it local government, state government, national government. And they do. A lot of what government does is an infringement upon your rights. What we look at is what the right is, what the level of scrutiny the court has to apply. And there are three different levels of scrutiny. There's the rational basis, intermediate, and strict scrutiny. If it's a fundamental right, strict scrutiny will apply. So let's take the thing that I have complained about is a lot of the orders that have passed have banned going to church. I'll tell you, it's something that incenses me. The government cannot close the doors to your church, period. Can't do it. Now, can they place some restrictions? Yes. And we'll go into that. Let me take a look at Randall's question. Does supremacy clause allow the federal government to force a state to reopen if things get back to normal, but you have a state that wants to stay shut down? That wouldn't be a supremacy clause. Can the federal government force a state to reopen if things are back to normal? Well, a state is its own sovereign. So you have a dual sovereignty question, but the other question might be one of interstate commerce. And interstate commerce is probably what would be used if you had a state that decided, we're just going to stay shut down 6 months more. And in that case, the Dormant Commerce Clause could be used to say that, hey, you're not producing what you should be, so you're in violation of the law. You're getting into esoteric parts of constitutional law that, quite frankly, I'm familiar with, but I'm not an expert on. I would have to research that. And I've researched the Dormant Commerce Clause some because in Missouri, when we passed our medical marijuana laws, we also passed a constitutional amendment, rather. We also passed a requirement that ownership be at least 51% Missouri ownership. That actually violates the Dormant Commerce Clause. It's unconstitutional. And I'm really, really surprised that nobody took that to court and challenged it and had a portion of that constitutional law struck down. I would have thought that the anti-medical marijuana crowd would have challenged that just to stop and frustrate the implementation of our medical marijuana in Missouri. So I'm really surprised that didn't get challenged. That's my take on that. So what the court will have to look at as far as when somebody challenges these laws, that's going to be looked at as strict scrutiny. Take, for example, the isolated case of religion. Kirksville's ordinance doesn't do this, but some of them have, and they say that, church services are banned. You can't go to church. That would be an impermissible violation, in my opinion. But what the court will look at is the test, strict scrutiny. First, is there a compelling government interest? And whether you agree with it or not, the court's going to find that there is a compelling government interest, that the interest of containing COVID-19 is greater than the interest of, is compelling government interest. That will happen. That part right off, compelling government interest is already reached. Then the question is the resolution, is the thing that the state wants to do narrowly tailored? Okay. Is it limited to only achieving the state's goal? Okay. So that is very important. It has to be a narrowly tailored result. And if they don't achieve the narrowly tailored, that's where people win in these cases. Sorry, I just got an email and okay. Well, let me close out the emails, and I will not be reading emails while I'm doing this. Yes. And for the person who just sent me an email, I'm not going to name you, but I'm well aware that I'm overweight. Thank you. And believe me, this whole stay-at-home crap is not helping. I'm boxed up in my house with my 3 kids, and yes, just like the rest of you. So with strict scrutiny, it has to be a compelling government interest, and the result has to be narrowly tailored to achieve that government interest. Okay. Now, there's a ton of case law on this on various things, but the thing to remember is it has to be narrowly tailored. When we talk about an order that closes churches, okay, and these are all going to be very specific. I can't speculate. I can tell you that I don't think Kirksville's order is going to be actionable under this. I think that they have left it open, that it's not an impermissible infringement. There have been some that have been floated, I've seen, that really come close to that line, where they're shutting down churches, but they have this broad list of exceptions. And in that case, is that order narrowly tailored? You have all of these exceptions where, let's face it, the drive-through at McDonald's is considered essential, but you're going to church is not essential and you're not allowed to do it. That's a problem. I don't think that one of those orders is going to withstand the criticism. Now, let's talk about, because we had someone mention Lincoln in here earlier. Let's talk about what that's going to mean going forward. What that means is someone's going to have to run afoul of that law, either challenge it proactively or challenge it in their defense. And when that happens, then it's going to go to the local trial court. Local trial court is going to rule against you or rule against them, because you can pretty much expect that's going to happen. I'll be surprised if the local trial court were to rule in that person's favor. Then it will go up on appeals. And I don't mean, and that's not a negative aspect to local trial courts. What it is an understanding that local trial court is going to reflect the local conditions and local residents. So please don't read that in as being slighting local trial courts. I'm not saying that at all. But you're not going to win that argument on public safety and the order signed by the local prosecutor you're being prosecuted on, or local order by the county commission, rather, or the mayor, and you're being prosecuted in that entity's courts. The odds are you're not going to win that. So then it will go up on appeal. And you may win in Court of Appeals, it may go up to the state Supreme Court, and you may or may not win there. Regardless, that's not going to get into those courtrooms until after this crisis is over. It's going to take that long for it to happen. Just like Lincoln, when he suspended rights during the Civil War, the Supreme Court didn't address that until afterwards. And when they did, they said, you were wrong. Well, okay, great. He was wrong, but he still did it. Kind of like a judge said to me one time, I should rephrase that. We were talking after a hearing generally, and the judge said, well, I'll make my ruling, and if you don't like it, you can appeal it. And even if I'm wrong, by the time you get through appeals, the point is moot, and so it doesn't really matter. And it's a valid point. However, things like the religious part of this have to be challenged, or the violation of rights will stand as a precedent. So people are going to challenge this. And I'll say probably the first challenge is going to be out of Florida. In Florida, a week or so ago, there was a pastor who held church service, and he was charged criminally in Florida. He is being represented by a religious rights attorney in Florida, and the rights groups are starting to line up. His case may well be the one that goes to the Supreme Court and takes that on for this. That's not going to happen until the crisis is over, but that may be the law that comes out of the whole crisis that we're experiencing. Will this slow down medical marijuana dispensaries opening? Yes. Yes. Look, construction crews can be in there and they can start working on it. That's fine. Again, they can be working on the cultivation facilities. You can be working on the testing facilities, getting everything spun up. But this is going to slow a lot of things down. So, yeah, I think it is. But I haven't had a really good opinion that we were going to see anything on the shelves of dispensaries before mid to late summer anyway. And look, if you have a patient ID card, you need to get a cultivation card and grow your own at home. My opinion is and has been that it is the home cultivation that's going to make the medical marijuana work. But it's still considered to be essential. I don't know that we have a legal guidance on that for Missouri. In other states, they have made those proclamations, but not necessarily in Missouri. But in the states that they have, I believe they have full legalization. Like Colorado and Washington. So that's a different situation. And one of the things to remember, and it gets overlooked a lot, is there are no prescriptions for marijuana. Marijuana is still a Schedule I substance, and doctors cannot prescribe it. The certification we have in Missouri is certification that you meet the requirements. And that is not a prescription. It's just certification that you meet the requirements of the state for the card. So I don't know that it would be considered essential, but if you read the governor's order, and let me go back to it and I will read that. I'll get to your question in just a second, Randall. When you read the governor's order, food, prescriptions, healthcare, and other necessities. Healthcare and other necessities, I think we have medical marijuana. We have a right to use medical marijuana in the state of Missouri. I would believe that that could be argued under healthcare and other necessities. So, but there's no guidance to give me that we can give a solid yay or nay on that. Randall, talk a little bit about Nevada governor banning the hydrochloroquine in light of FDA approval for it. Well, I thought that was a Wisconsin governor, not Nevada. Let me check. Oh, Nevada. Huh. Okay. Bans malaria drugs. Nope. Yeah, I'm seeing it right now. I know that, yeah, the Wisconsin governor had said, no, you can't use it, and has reversed course and asked for that. My brother lives in D.C. now because he works in Congress. I'm not going to go any more about who he works for, but he's from Las Vegas. I mean, he made Las Vegas his home, and we hadn't discussed this at all. Restricting chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. So there's no consensus among experts that the drugs can treat people. Limits prescription to 30-day supply. Don't you just love it when people who have no medical training are making medical decisions? Like, here's the deal. He's a politician. He's doing what politicians do. And the 30-day supplies, he's probably wanting to make sure that it isn't overprescribed and lost. Yeah, and it came after that guy killed himself by using a different form of chloroquine. Politicians react. Very few politicians are working in a proactive situation. They are reactive by nature of what they do. So this governor's policy was reactive to, there was a minor study that showed great results, but the people that conducted the study had also said, hey, there needs to be a broader study. We're presenting this as unready to present it. We're presenting it because of the importance of the issue. Which, good on them for getting that information out so it could be broadened. And there have been broader uses now. The problem is that people who don't know what they're doing say, well, chloroquine, sulfate, chloroquine, phosphate, chloroquine X, those are all things. It's all chloroquine, right? And the answer is no, they're not. They're different things. And, lack of knowledge of chemistry will kill you when you're putting stuff into your body. So I can understand some of the restrictions. However, that was a restriction on doctors, which makes no sense. So there's anybody who should be trained to know what medicine is what and is responsible for knowing what medicine is what. It would be the doctor prescribing it. Limiting prescriptions to 30 days, that could very well just be concerned about the stockpiles and how much they have available, which would be an effective government task. I mean, government's job is to make control like that, whether you like it or not. As for zinc, I'm a lawyer, man. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a doctor. I've read the news reports about the study that they did with the chloroquine, but that's the limit of my knowledge. So I can't say that zinc will help anything or not help anything. One of the doctors might be the place to go for that. I know that if you take too much zinc, it can cause a poisoning. And I know that because there was an episode of House on it. But yeah, no, those would be questions better directed towards somebody with medical experience and training. And my Army Combat Lifesaver course is clearly not medical experience or training. Never let a combat lifesaver touch you, man. That would be scary. So, yeah, I think I'm probably going to wind this up now. We're running an hour and 20 minutes unless there are some other questions, just because it's going to be so long, nobody's going to watch the damn thing. But thank you all for coming. This is going to be a regular Saturday live thing. We'll talk about various subjects. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe. You know, the logarithm really responds to the likes. And, you know, I appreciate it. And know the fish cleaners. Yeah. Avoid eating fish cleaners. But there are some things that are perfectly safe. I mean, amoxicillin, fish mox, it's the same thing. But you got to make sure that you know. And a lot of people don't know what they're doing. So, piece of plastic for an open sucking chest wound. Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a sucking chest wound, you're going to want to cover that and seal it off so that you can retain the lung. But frankly, if you're depending on the average person on the street to pull off a piece of plastic to cover a sucking chest wound, you're probably going to die before you get help anyway. Just, you know, they're going to use a COVID-19 infected piece of plastic. Social distancing. All right. Thank you. Like, subscribe. I appreciate it. And you all have a good day, and we will see you again soon.